I'm Florian Douetteau. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Dataiku. Dataiku is a decade-old company that started as a platform for democratized data science that is now an agentic platform that is focusing on AI success for large enterprise. They have the best data, the best way to optimize all of their agentic workforce.
When we speak about AI, what is the last thing that genuinely surprised you?
As we recorded on July 21st, I think that Kimi was released 4 days ago, and the fact that Kimi was so close to Fable 5 genuinely surprised me. I would have bet that it would take 2 to 4 more months to reach that parity. It surprised me how fast the open source ecosystem for model is catching up and is becoming prime almost. The Dataiku, our key take back 2 years ago was to create like a data mesh to quickly switch from one LLMs to the other. The ability for customers to move from one providers to the other would be very valuable in the long term because of the underlying nature of what LLMs are. Ultimately, the LLM layer itself will be commoditized, with the question of how fast you infer, the energy cost and so forth being prevalent.
We are speaking about the different layers of inference, the commoditization, but so what will not be solved by AI?
The topic of accountability and responsibility. That's how you run things with the type of risk trade-off you are really willing to take as an organization. If you take a practical perspective of, let's say, a bank. What is a bank? A bank is a system to actually manage financial risks. You have bank to distribute that risk. Part of this distribution is about having distribution of accountability within the bank. It's very hard for one person to do something catastrophic. You need multiple persons to fail for something catastrophic to happen, and the bank is actually built in order to do that. Building agentic processes is that by design, you concentrate quite a bit accountability to the agentic system. Even if you build multiple agents, in a nutshell, well, it's kind of like a big accountable system where you might concentrate risk in one location. So that part will not be solved by almost by definition. Everything else maybe will.
If you had to bet 10 million on AI infrastructure, where would you invest?
I would invest on HR, but like for agents themselves. In organization, you will get a number of agentic systems that is the same order of magnitude as the number of employees you have today. You will have the need of understanding the cost, risk, behaviors, performance of those agents the same way you're trying to do it to some extent with your human resources. What are the agents that you actually need? Are they actually overperforming or not really performing? Agentic spend will very likely be a few percent of a company's revenue at some point, and you need to essentially manage the performance you get out of it. Otherwise, you just get AI slop.
Do you hold a contrarian belief that most people don't have?
I actually don't think that vibe coding is the last thing that will ever exist. First, the fact that we build lots of the programming languages based on the design constraints of keyboard and human reading, big train set of code and program already existing. You could imagine very quickly that we move away from programming languages in the future, because ultimately programming languages were built for humans. Second consideration, there are lots of domains where vibe coding and code is not so appropriate to enable the humans to interact meaningfully with the machine. For instance, in data, vibe coding is not always practical because data is not a field where it's easy to have an opinion based on look of the things or have a unit test, meaning is the data right or not right, compared to have something that create artifacts, like visual artifacts that people understand so that they can actually validate that the data they are transforming is actually the right one. I don't believe that the automated generation of Python on Rust will ultimately be the thing that is solving the big problems of mankind at scale completely. We might have a shift in terms of the actual language being used, which might not be a text-based language, but more like visual or domain-specific languages in order to actually manage this interaction between LLM and humans.
And it goes back to your question of responsibility.
Exactly. Meaning I've got more and more customers that are worried that they've got people in their business that are vibe coding into Python that makes no sense and no one is knowing where the data is coming from, then la 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 la. We are entering a world where the cost of creation is getting to zero, but the cost of managing complexity is going through the roof. If you're a small organization, you manage that because you know what's happening. But when you start applying that to organizations that are a few thousand people, the big risk is to have AI create an amount of chaos that would break the organization apart.